It is. It was. Until recently. Just, well, I never know if I have, but I usually have the YouTube ones. All right, Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal Emac coming to you for the first Sunday morning for baseball. It is going to be a good one. I have Matthew Belman here with me. For those of you celebrating Easter, enjoy. For those of you celebrating the first Sunday of baseball, well, you've come to the right spot here. Matt, how are you doing? It's the all Belman, all Ehrenberg, all McPherson weekend continuing. This is day 2. How have you been in the few hours since I last saw you?
It is day 2. We will meet again in a few hours for NBA. So just getting started today. It's been a good weekend. Had a nice night in MLB last night. Followed it up with some nice LOL play this morning. So excited to talk this slate out with you.
Good deal. Yeah, I did okay for MLB yesterday. Did not for the afternoon slate and on DraftKings. Not so well over on Yahoo, where I just run one lineup. Just missed cashing. Crushed it the night before, even though I had puck in my lineup. And then basketball was, yeah, it was really good on DraftKings. I tied for first in the $20 or 20 max $1. Melissa was up there with us as well. I think it was a train of like 12 people, so that was fun. And then MMA hooked me up well after I was asleep. I went to bed about 10:30, but woke up to $150 profit for MMA. Shout out to these stochastic sims, because I don't look at anything when it comes to MMA. Good time there. But we've got baseball. I love the baseball. I will be getting into the sims this year. I still since I was driving down on opening day, and I'm still using last year's process, which is basically a fantasy cruncher for me, but I will be maneuvering over to the Sims here. But you definitely want to check those out. They were altering for me for MLB, for NASCAR, and of course for MMA. You can use promo code Dinger will get you 30% off any MLB package. That's an important thing to remember, and that is going to go away shortly, but you'll want to check out the Sims. We're going to talk about the top stacks tool, leverage plays, top pitchers tool, all that fun stuff that we typically do. But we're going to jump on in here because we have quite a few games to cover. 10 games on DraftKings and FanDuel comprising this early slate. It's a 1:35 first pitch. Yahoo is going at 4:05. We are not going to talk about those later games, but I did cover them in the article on the Stochastic homepage, the DFS Spotlight Pitchers and Top Stacks article. I covered a pitcher and a stack for that late slate. But Matt, I'm going to turn this over to you. The Anaheim Angels are in Baltimore wrapping up their series. They've got Ty Detmer. Oh my God. Reaching back to BYU quarterbacks of the 90s there. They have Reed Detmers on the mound. Tyler Wells, that's where I got the tie from. Tyler Wells is pitching for Baltimore. What do you got in this one? Looking like it's going to be in the low 60s in this Baltimore spring day.
Don't love a ton of anything in this game, to be completely honest. Baltimore bats are always in play. They're really, really good. One of the best offenses in baseball, certainly, at least in the AL. Wells looks pretty good just because of the matchup. I think you can play any pitcher versus the Angels right now. He's coming in with really nice leverage also. About a 12% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, only 5% ownership. The highest leverage pitcher on the slate right now. I'm interested in Wells. He's not my favorite pitcher on the slate, but he's my favorite part of this game. It's all Baltimore for me. I would have a hard time stacking the Angels in any matchup right now. And Detmer's just not the spot I really want to use him. I'd much rather play Wells at basically the same price point. So I don't love Wells and the Orioles bats here, but I like them, and I think they're the two best sides of this game. How about you?
Yeah, I'm not getting a ton from this game. Hopefully, I'm trying to tweak my Wi-Fi here onto a better connection here. Hopefully, I won't end up with a ton in this game. If I'm going to do anything, it's going to be the Baltimore bats going against Reed Detmers. I do like Detmers. Obviously, he had some inconsistent results, if I remember correctly. But didn't he have a no-hitter where he like had no strikeouts or something crazy like that in his rookie season? He did pick up the strikeout pace last year, but this Baltimore team is poised for greatness. up and down the lineup. They've got a lot of young talent here, and they are just getting more and more experience. So this is going to be one of those teams we don't really want to tangle with. So of either side here, I do like the Baltimore offense. The Angels, much different without Ohtani anchoring that lineup there. They have Anthony Rendon for as long as he's healthy. So I guess that's something. Taylor Ward is adequate, but this is not a scary lineup. But I like other pitchers besides Tyler Wells. He's probably going to be like a 10% guy for me on DK. I'm just playing DK this morning, so I'll be on the two pitcher sides. But that's kind of it for this game. Any other highlights you guys want to put out there other than I believe Mickey Moniak was scratched?
Okay, I'm with you on Wells, and it's nice if you're multi-entering. If you're 10% on a guy like Wells, you're double the field. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so for baseball, I generally push down my pitcher caps, so I get up to a lot more pitchers. That's my default position. There will be times where I'll make exceptions if we get a mispriced pitcher, a really good matchup, or there's a lot of garbage on the field. But as we get into our next game, talking about Chris Sale here, he as of 90 minutes ago was the top projected pitcher, but that was only by a couple fantasy points on each side. But as such, he becomes, the 20% chance of being a top two pitcher on DraftKings. You have him with about a 10% chance of being the top pitcher on FanDuel. That's not a lot. Sale had a good spring. He's demonstrated a lot of strikeouts. He's in his age 35 season. Philadelphia, pretty good lineup here. A lot of lefties, but they've performed very well against lefties. They do have some strikeouts there, but this is one where I'm willing to come in below the field on Sale just because it's a volatile spot and the pitching is not that separated. So while he has the name and the sort of pedigree when he's healthy, I'm willing to go under the field on someone like that, which in turn will lift my exposure to Tyler Wells and stuff like that. How do you feel about Chris Sale? You're only going to, I'm assuming you're doing your usual, you just build a couple lineups. Is he making your cut today?
I don't think so. I feel similarly about Sale as you do. I'm an MLB degen, so I played a lot of spring training. I know they didn't have great contests, but it kind of just kept me in the loop. He was good in the spring, but he wasn't like amazing. And they certainly are going to watch his innings. They don't want to stress him, certainly not early in the season. I get why he's projected to be highly owned and why he looks so good at 8,800, the number one pitcher in the top pitcher tool, pretty separate from the pack. I don't really see it that way. And the ownership is there. So I like, I'm of the belief guys like Gaussman and even Flaherty at basically the same price point are more similar plays than our tools would indicate. That said, like, he's obviously in play and he's got probably the best points per dollar upside of any pitcher on the slate to go along with probably the highest strikeout upside, just raw strikeout upside of anyone on the slate. Usually I might say that's Gaussman, but he only had one spring training start. I'm more worried about Gaussman's workload than I normally would be, but I'm always going to be worried about Sale's workload just because I don't think they're going to stress him. They don't need to. They're not going to. So I get it. It's probably not for me, though.
All right. This is also a spot where I'm not particularly interested in the Philly hitters. However, I think it's worthwhile to make a contrarian stack or two just to gain that direct leverage off someone like Sale. But the key thing about Sale is he could still have an adequate game or that you don't want him for DFS because he's not getting strikeouts, but he only allows 3 or 4 runs. And that's not going to do a lot of favors for the offense either. So it becomes a little tricky on how you want to approach those types of things here. If you are Ranger Suarez, another guy, he does a decent job of not imploding on the mound. He's kind of like one of those lefties, a little bit of a ground ball lean like Martin Perez. You always think, oh, I'm going to go against this person, and then you start looking at their game logs, and you're like, they never really quite get destroyed. How does that happen? So that's kind of how I'm feeling about Suarez today. You are looking at some apex salaries here on the Atlanta Braves. I think that's a kind of wasted allocation of resources. So I'm kind of a stay away from the Braves in this one. Maybe some marginal Phillies just to go against Sale a little bit, but I don't think I'll have a lot from either of our first two games. But there's some big stance we're going to be taking here shortly. Anything you want to call out from either the Braves or Phillies before we continue moving on here?
No, our tools don't like the Phillies as a stack, but I just can't get away from how much leverage they would offer if Sale implodes, which we've seen him do. Again, he wasn't amazing in the spring. He was good and he got a lot of Ks, which is what he does. The Phillies have a really good lineup though. So, this is probably the lowest they'll ever be in the top stack tool this whole year. And I don't think they're a great stack, but I don't think they're, I don't think they belong with teams like the White Sox here. Like, I think they're just because when the Phillies go off, they hit home runs. I know the White Sox just had a great game yesterday. Made me eat my words about Maeda, but I'll go back to that offense just not being good. Whereas the Philly offense is actually really good. So if they get to Sale here, I see home runs. And then you get the Braves bullpen, which, can be good in the back end, but certainly if they're losing, they're not going to bring in their top gun. So I think there's leverage to be had in Philly. I'm personally probably just going to stay away from both sides and hope that Sale is not great, but Philly doesn't hit a bunch of home runs. But yeah, that's it. Ranger Suarez, I'm just not going to do it against Atlanta here. He's a guy, if I were multi-entering, maybe I'd have some shares, but I'd rather get to a guy like Tyler Wells, who's also coming in, very low owned.
Yeah. And I see SMP in chat, saying, Sale was amazing in the spring. So the hard part about spring training is it's not always an indicator of how somebody is. You like to see somebody doing well, but is that part of it actionable? Not really, because you would have to go dig in and see, was it split squad games, or how.
Look what Tommy Pham said yesterday
pitch
on Twitter. He was like he tweeted this out, basically what you're saying. He's like, the more I've watched from home, the more I realize that spring training numbers mean absolutely nothing. And this is a guy that's played for a long time. Go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. Oh, no. That's okay. It's one of those where if they do really bad, were they working on pitches? Were they just trying to do a certain curveball thing? Were they messing around with a different grip? Was it whatever, right? It's one of those where you'd like to see them doing well, but it doesn't mean it's awesome. Here's a fun one. The 1977 Mariners, first year of the season, they led spring training with like a 306 average and then proceeded to have the most losses in the league. Right? It's just, what are you going to do? But it's more information. It's good. How actionable? That's the question, right? And it's baseball here. So even craziness can happen at any point in time, even for males people.
I have to push back on the fact that he was great in the spring also. He was very good and he got Ks, but against Baltimore, he faced 15 batters, gave up 4 hits, 3 earned runs, struck out 2. That was one of his 5 starts. Against Tampa in the next start, he struck out 6, but also gave up 2 runs, 3 hits, and 14 batters faced. So, like, he was good, but he wasn't like so dominant where I think that the old Chris Sale is suddenly back. That's just me though.
Yeah, no, exactly. And for SMP, for those who aren't reading the chat, I know SMP knows what he's doing here. So I knew what he was saying. I wasn't trying to shame him or anything like that for this, but it was something I wrote up in my article. I said, here's Sale. He's the top pitcher in all the tools across the industry. He has a 2 to 3 median fantasy point projection edge over the next 7 pitchers. It's not enough of an edge to really go after for someone that has heavy negative leverage on both sides. Probably not. If it was Apex Scherzer, Apex Kershaw, somebody like that, okay, we have a different story, right? We might say, okay, well, that's worth it to me because I think their implosion is less likely, and their upside is attainable, could be tougher, but still better than everybody else. That's what these tools are showing us for Sale, but we have to remember the baseline. This is not a great pitching slate. We're down to number 4 starters on a lot of teams here, so or 3 starters. It is what it is here. Okay, so now we can talk about bad starters in a good way. But first, Prize Picks, presenting sponsor of the show.
That's not me, is it?
The link of the deposit. Coming through the link below us here is Stochastic Odd Shopper. Oh, here I am. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on with the internet today. It's taking Sunday off. Where did I leave off? Oh, well, in that case, just let me say quickly, Prospect presenting sponsor of the show, $100 deposit match coming in through the link in the YouTube description below us here, and 30 days of Odd Shopper comes along with that if you are new to Prize Picks. All righty. Let's see here. So Washington Nationals, Cincinnati Reds. You have Jake Irvin, not so good of a pitcher, kind of a rough rookie season. Not horrible. He's going to be an innings eater at best. But looking at the Reds, they just have power up and down the lineup. Heck, their number 2 hitter just had a 2-home run game. Nick Martini here. So I will be pushing in all the chips on the Reds, variety of ways, sub stacks, primary stacks, minis, one-offs, all the way around. I really like the Reds. I know that's not going to be a unique take today. Hence is why I'm spreading out my pitching in a lot of other places to create some diversity here and a little bit of differentiation. On the other side, Nick Martinez, yeah, 5-10% tops as I'm playing out my lineups. I hope to get 0 of him. If we look at the Nationals, Jesse Winker in the remember me spot, Joey Meneses, debuted as a 30-year-old rookie, keeps meandering. Joey Gallo, he could power wind farms. I don't know about the rest of the Nationals here, Matt, but I know I want some Reds here. Do you have any interest in the pitching, or is it all hitting for you?
It's all hitting, but it's all the other side for me. When you look at the tools right now, like the Reds are the top stack and they're coming in with leverage, about 10% chance of being the top stack, 8% ownership. They're more expensive today, so I get that. I think they'll come in with a lot of love. And I like going to the other side of this game, which just isn't going to get love. 6% chance of being the top stack, and it's the Nationals. Only 4% ownership. I mean, yeah, the matchup versus Irvin is better, and the Reds are better than the Nationals. But I think the ownership just is going to be drastically out of whack between these two teams. You get the same spot in terms of the ballpark. The Nationals were really good yesterday at low ownership. I'm going to go right back to Washington here, play the ownership game in the first weekend of the season. The Reds look really good, but I know in higher dollar stuff, they are going to be really, really popular. And I just don't want to eat that ownership, knowing that they have the best chance of going off and being the top stack on the board. And when that happens, those aren't usually going to be the days I win.
Any particular Nationals you want to call out?
CJ Abrams, probably the top piece leading off, big speed upside, has some power in there as well. I think it's a stack spot for me and not like a one-off type situation. This isn't a team with like a ton of power, but you get them in this ballpark against a pitcher who's off, and I think the whole stack could be good.
All right. I see we need to pick up the pace just a little bit here. So since we're not really going in on the pitchers here, we'll hit our next game. We've got Kevin Gausman in Tampa Bay taking on the Rays. They are putting out Sean Armstrong, going to be probably a semi-bullpen type game here. Gausman getting up to speed here, more adequate spring here, I guess. What do you had sort of mentioned that we're doing some comparisons on Gausman there to Sale. Anything else you want to finish up on that, or go ahead and talk about the pitching here?
Man, I love Gausman. I love Gausman. He's one of my favorite pitchers in the league. Maybe I'm a little bit too high on him today, considering he only made one spring start. It's not the best matchup in the world against Tampa, but they throw a lot of righties out there who can K. So he's my favorite pitcher on the slate, especially at the ownership. Now, I'm a little scared by that because the tools are saying that Sale is the top guy by a lot. But the ownership is already there as well. Like Sale is the second most negatively leveraged pitcher on the slate. I'm getting to the most negative leverage pitcher on the slate. So certainly don't mind, getting to a contrarian Kevin Gausman in a high K upside spot. His pitch workload won't be, what it is in a couple months, but not a great pitching slate. He's got K upside. He was dominant in his only spring start like a week ago. So I love Gaussman in general. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And the $1,000 price tag, increase doesn't really change it for me. I like Gaussman a lot. Okay, no problem. Um, yeah, as far as the other side of this game, don't really think we can take a chance on the Rays pitchers here just because they're starting with an opener. Then Tyler Alexander's coming in. He's coming in with decent leverage, but not really the spot I think you want to use Alexander against the Blue Jays. Um, Bats here are pretty mediocre across the board. Toronto looks similar to Washington to me. More expensive, so harder to get to, but more power upside, sure. So I like Toronto as a contrarian stack. No interest in Tampa, unless you just want to play that Gaussman, is okay and doesn't pitch long into this game. I think there are certainly worse teams to stack than the Rays on any given day, but just not where I'm going to go. So overall, this game is Gaussman priority for me. Jays a contrarian stack, and then nothing really else.
All right. Kevin Kiermaier, deep cut on home run of the day if he makes it into the lineup because it's Sunday. Kevin Kiermaier hits home runs on Sundays. So does Anthony Santander. Just saying. Joking, but I like both those guys. All right, let's continue on here. We still have Jeepers, a whole bunch of games. So we will talk about, let's keep it in Florida here. Let's go with Pittsburgh in Miami. Trevor Rogers, the lefty, taking the mound against Bailey Falter. Lefty there on the other side. Falter been a little bit up and down throughout his career. Perfectly adequate as an SP2 at 6,600 there on DraftKings. We're still waiting on that Pirates lineup, but we do have Miami. It is going to be mostly their standard lineup. Luis Arias at leading off, Josh Bell, Jake Berger, Brian De La Cruz, Jazz just home finally healthy. Tim Anderson, the lefty killer, who fell apart and did not kill many lefties the last two seasons, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Avisel Garcia, also a good one-off here as a super cheapie at 3,200 on DK, and then just punts at the bottom with Nick Fortes and Vidal Bruin. Is there anything from the Pirates that you like?
I don't like anything from the Pirates, but, Brian Hayes, going to be a guy that's pretty much always in play, especially against the lefty. I think you can pick pieces, but I don't like the Pirate stack. No, I think Rogers is the play to get to if you like either side of this game.
All right. And then what Marlins stand out?
The Marlins look pretty good here. The top stack tool doesn't love them. So at first glance on this slate, I thought I was going to like them more. I'm backing off that a little bit. Bailey Falter has been up and down. You said there's a guy that's come out of the bullpen a lot. He had a guy that paid a lot of guys this spring, but also gave up a lot of base runners. So the Marlins stack looks decent to pretty good. Jake Berger, Brian De La Cruz. I think you can throw like a Tim Anderson as a cheap shortstop in there, although at this point you're probably paying for what he did 2 years ago. Yeah, the Marlins are a team that look fine to me as a full stack or as one-offs because I think they have power upside in this spot. And the middle of their lineup is kind of what you want to get to in my eyes, at least.
If you had a home run call from this game, who would it be?
I'm going to go Jake Berger.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. I'm going to go Abby Garcia, even from the solid spot. So I
love it.
Okay, we're going to continue moving along. I did mention Prize Picks, $100 deposit match. If you have not gotten that, you really need to, plus 30 days of Odd Shopper comes along with it by coming in through the link in the YouTube description here below Matt and I. Next game, another kind of interesting one here. Now we have some potential SP2s. You've got Colin Ray going against the Mets here. The Mets have just a 4.3 implied run total. It is going to be in the mid 50s today in Citi Field. A little bit of a cross breeze going from third base over to first base. So it's not quite coming in from the outfield, maybe a tiny bit from left. That's going to be in the 7 to 15 mile an hour range. Shouldn't be dramatically impacting anything, but it is worth noting. On the other side, you have Tyler Miguel, who is enigmatic is the answer for him. You've got the Brewers that Rhys Hoskins was sort of my, oh wow, I didn't realize he was with the Brewers moment last night when I was looking at some box scores. That one caught me off guard. Of course, he got hurt. He actually got hurt. I think it was at the spring training game I went to in Tampa last year. That was when he hurt his knee and was just done for the season. But he's popped up there. I don't know what to do with the Brewers. A lot of strikeouts in their lineup, but some power. Sal Frelick came up as the rookie last year and was really good his first couple games. Totally was going to be a flash in the pan, but then ended up anchoring the 4th or 5th spot for quite a bit of the season. He is batting leadoff today, so that's somewhat interesting because he's all but assured of getting 5 at bats, being on the road here. So he's interesting for me. On the Mets side, we can always like Lindor, Alonso, Brandon Nimmo. Especially if he's leading off. But I don't have a strong conviction on anybody here, but I don't see any avoids either, and that goes for the pitchers, which is a little bit weird. Not much strikeout upside with either pitcher though. We're hoping they control the damage, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I don't really like any side of this game. On a big slate, only playing limited lineups, can't play everything.
Maybe my favorite. If you play 150 lineups, you can play everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the Mets are like both offenses are so low on the top stack tool. Like at first glance, I'd kind of like the Mets, but they're coming in with massive negative leverage. They're just not an offense I want to get to in situations like that. Same with the Brewers. I don't hate them here. I also don't think McGill is a bad pitcher, so not overly interested in the bats. But I feel similarly about the pitchers. So if you have a stand on this game, I get it. It's just not really for me. They all look meh.
That's why they're the Mets. See what I did there? That was good. That was good.
I appreciated that one. That was good.
All right. You gotta throw in the dad jokes every now and then. I'm still in spring training form here, so I'm working on it. Clearly my internet is. I don't know. First crappy show with internet I've had since I've been down here. For the last year in Florida. Again, sorry, I don't know what it is. I've tried the 5G, I've tried the Wi-Fi, I've tried my phone with a hotspot. They're all kind of crapping out today. So perhaps it is just the internet provider as a whole, and it is spring break down here. So there's lots and lots of people. Not that that's impacting my Wi-Fi, but it could be impacting the general area because there's probably about 10 times the people there normally are. Here I can see the beach parking lot next to us. Cars are just circling around like sharks trying to find spots. It's a little bit funny.
Humble brag.
Pittsburgh. Oops, we talked about Pittsburgh. Let me go up here. We've got Bailey Ober. We've got Bradley Singer. Both of these pitchers have had moments throughout their career, Matt. Both of them have gone through putrid stretches. They've got some salary behind them today. We have the full lineups here for both teams. It's looking like it's going to be in the low 70s for this game. There is a breeze going out to left field. Do you want to pay for these pitchers here, particularly on DraftKings at $9K and $8,400 for Ober and Singer, respectively?
Talk about a guy that was really, really good in the spring. It was Bailey Ober. Don't really want to use him here with the weather on the road at 9K, but he was really good in the spring with much higher strikeout upside than he had shown in recent memory. So, I get anyone that would want to go there. I'm not overly interested in the pitchers in this game. Neither of them are getting a lot of love, but as you mentioned, good weather spot for hitting, and neither of these pitchers jump off the page to me either. So I think this game is about the bats.
All right. Who is your favorite upside bat from the Twins? And why is it Alex Kirilloff?
Well, you say upside. I mean, I feel like that answer has to be Buxton, right?
4,600, a little spendy. But is he going to run this year? That's the big question. And how long till he gets hurt? That's question number 2.
I feel like that's why 4,600 for a healthy Buxton is not a bad look.
Okay. I'm voting with Kirilov here. Although it says it's going to take up your first base slot, that's a little tough. Perhaps a Matt Wallner at 2,900 is another good option. Do you have any conviction for the Royals? They look pretty good 1 through 5.
I don't hate the Royals here. I don't love them either. They're low owned. They're pretty low in the top stack tool. Like, this is a team that has certainly speed upside with some power. So I don't hate them. Ober isn't really a guy I want to pick on, though. So it's the Twins bats for me. As of right now, they're the highest owned stack on the slate. I don't think they'll come in higher owned than Cincinnati, although I think it'll be comparable because they're a lot cheaper. So those are your two, chalky offenses, Minnesota and Cincinnati. Not worried about ownership on any other offense personally. And even with those two offenses, not like it's the Dodgers and Coors or something like that where they're coming in so high owned where you have to get away from them. I just look at it as an opportunity to get other comparable offenses at lower ownership. So, there's certainly different ways to play every MLB slate, and today is no exception. That said, the Twins look really good from a top stack perspective. The Royals look good from a contrarian standpoint. Wouldn't fault anyone for prioritizing either side of this game personally.
I I kind of like this one. It's got all the elements. Literally, you've got a little bit
Right.
of warmth, a little bit of wind. You've got pitchers that wouldn't shock you if either one got a quality start today with a strikeout per inning. No, no, not at all. Would it shock you if either one imploded for 5 or more earned runs and multiple extra base hits? No. This is what our friend T. McBee would call a both sides are, and Gundacker. Shout out to those guys. Gundacker would call this a what was his term? Scumdacker, meaning he's just going to do a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything from this game. That's sort of how I feel. I mean, at the end of the day, if you told me, hey, the Twins had the number one offense today, they scored 9 runs. Okay, I could buy that. Same thing for the Royals. Or I could see them scoring a couple and the pitchers, having 9 strikeouts and being a top 3 pitcher. Gotta love baseball, especially these early days as we come into it after the more projectable sport,
Right.
a more predictable sport of NBA. It's a good reminder of the chaos that can happen.
This is definitely the game where I'm most concerned to not have exposure to.
Okay.
Because like you said, I see it from both sides, especially Ober and the Twins. Like, I don't love Singer here, and KC is not a great offense. So while I could see both sides of the Royals doing well, it's really the Twins that scare me. And it just is what it is.
All right, I'm dropping the spotlight pitchers and top stacks article in there. I have written up a pitcher for the main, the afternoon, and the late slate. Same thing with stacks. So there you go, free article there. Also have the wager of the day. Today it is a home run. I'm going with well, you're just going to have to read it to find out who I'm going with there. Let's continue on here. The Yankees and Houston. I believe the roof will be open today. I will go look and see if I can find that information in particular. But you've got Clark Schmidt and JP France on the mound. These guys are like the inverse of Ober and Singer. Not that great. More often than not, struggle and just have big offenses behind them. Yankees, hey, they reloaded. They went and got Juan Soto. Of course, they're missing the ancient DJ LeMahieu, but for the moment, they still have Stanton and Judge. Wouldn't surprise me if somebody gets a day off here. We don't have that lineup yet. On the other side, the Astros looking pretty formidable, essentially running out the exact same lineup they've had for the better part of the last 2 or 3 seasons. So we know what we're getting there. Do you have leans either way here? And I'm going to see if I can find that weather information.
Talking about the Yankees Astros, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I like the Yankees here. Coming up second highest in the top stack tool, right behind Cincinnati. Ownership isn't even close to there. I get it, they're expensive, but I think you can make it work today. We haven't talked about one of, if not the best pitching option on the slate, which we'll get to, who's cheap. So yeah, the Yankees look really good to me here. Worth noting for anyone who's playing the Yankees, Anthony Volpe got scratched. John Birdie is now starting, making his Yankees debut. So easy swap, but just wanted to put it out in the ether.
I'm very sad. The blogger guy I used to go look at the status for the roof isn't doing it this year. That sucks. You would think that finding roof information is easy. It is for Chase Field. The rest of the stadiums, not so much. Not so much. Would you stack the Yankees? The decrepit, aging Yankees?
Yeah, I would. I just said they're one of my top stacks on the board. So,
oh, sorry. Okay.
Considering that, I would.
What would be your priorities? Because Judge is costing a pretty penny at 6,200 there.
He is. So I think Soto is the better on paper play, considering how he started the season. Love Judge in tournaments, though. I mean, it's Aaron Judge, and he's not going to be high owned. I think it's another spot, kind of like Washington, where, yeah, I like them as one-offs because they have power. Actually, it's not like Washington, just because they have so much more power. I like them as one-offs, 2, 3-man stacks, full 5-man. I think their whole lineup looks pretty good. Saving a little salary going from Volpe to Birdie. So they're not my favorite stack on the slate. Already talked about how much I like Washington in tournaments. Cincinnati also looks really good, but I think the Yankees are a really appealing tournament stack here with obvious power upside. JP France is good, but he doesn't miss a ton of bats. So I think there's a low floor for him here.
All right. It looks like based on social media here, the roof is closed because the fans are angry. Although one of them says, good, don't let Jesus see the Astros on Easter. So I'm assuming it's so that was leaving the roof closed because Jesus doesn't want to see him on Easter. I respect it. That's one. Why is the roof closed? It's awesome outside today. Is the roof open or closed? And then about 5 people saying, open the damn roof. So I'm guessing it means it's closed. You'd like to think social media. Don't ever look for baseball social media talking about weather or the status of the roof. Why would they ever do that? Why would they ever do that? Boy. All right, we are about 25 minutes away from a lock here. 2 more games to go. Did you have any highlights for the Houston side of things here that you wanted to specifically call out?
No, Houston is always in play. Today is no exception. They're also getting ownership, but they're a team that deserves to get ownership every slate they're on. I respect Clark Schmidt, but we saw him struggle at times last year, and Houston has, aside from the Dodgers, probably the second best offense in baseball. I think you could quibble with that. Baltimore's right there. Texas is right there also. But pound for pound, at least right now, I'll give I'll give Houston that spot.
All right. Now we've got an interesting conundrum here because I want to talk and say positive things about Jack Flaherty. So it's going to be in the upper 40s today in Chicago. That is pretty good pitching weather. There is a little bit of a breeze, 7 to 12 miles an hour coming in from left field here. And this is Flaherty's debut after spending first 7+ seasons of his career with the St. Louis Cardinals. And then he had some time there with Baltimore last year down the stretch. So he is looking intriguing to me here. He had a good spring. Wasn't as good as Sales, of course, but he does have an above average strikeout rate, and he is 7 years younger than Sale. And I don't feel all that great about the Chicago lineup because it is got a lot of strikeouts in it. Now, when the weather turns, when it gets warmer, if the wind's going in the other direction, we're going to be looking at some of these Chi Sox because when they do put the bat on the ball, they have power, but they have a lot of strikeouts. And the back half of their lineup, it's a bunch of, who are these guys? Braden Shoemake. Well, we know Paul DeYoung, Dominic Fletcher, Corey Lee. These are creative players. So that is a good 1, 2, 3 inning waiting for Flaherty. So Flaherty is actually my favorite pitcher of the slate today. He is someone I will be over the field on. Eric Fede on the other side, after watching him for years with the Nationals, no thank you. But perhaps we should play some of the Motor City Kitties, Matt.
Not for me. I'm on both pitchers in this game.
Okay.
Flaherty, same price as Sale, so I think that's
where's Flaherty ranked for you today?
I think for me, probably two. So I have Gaussman, Flaherty, and then Fetty is number three for me. It doesn't feel good, but the weather here, you talk about the elements in the KC game, exact opposite here. So I'm not scared of the matchup. I'm actually pretty high on Detroit this year. They're my pick to win the AL Central, even over Cleveland. So I like their squad this year. This is just not a good spot for them with the adverse weather. And Fetty, while he was kind of an also-ran when he pitched for the Nationals, didn't pitch in the majors last year. Believe he was in the KBO. Yeah, he was the MVP of the KBO last year. So that doesn't mean that he's going to come over and dominate Major League Baseball. Certainly, he was just okay in the spring, but he was dominant in the KBO. We've seen guys change their stuff going from the majors to the KBO and then back over. I'm sure you're thinking of the same guy I am, Merrill Kelly, who now looks like, I don't want to say like a legit ace, but a number one starter. I'm probably going on too long here. I like Fetty. I like Flaherty. No bats for me in this game.
Okay, that's not the take I was expecting to get here. I did not realize that Fetty. I just assumed he was hanging out in the minors somewhere. We've determined, or I think it's been determined that the KBO is like a little bit below AAA for the most part. But it's still obviously a legitimate league, and there's a handful of players that cross over coming in this direction. And as you said, we've seen several pitchers go back, revamp themselves, and come over here. I'm blanking on his name, but he pitched the last couple seasons for the Mariners after he washed out with the Mets.
Chris Flexen.
Yes, Flexen, who I don't know that he reinvented himself, but he got enough of.
Well, Merrill Kelly did.
Merrill Kelly reinvented. Well, Merrill Kelly is an entirely different story because he never made it to the majors. He stopped at AAA when he was with
yeah, you're right,
Durham as far as he ever got, and then he went to the KBO, and then what was he like 29 or something, 28, and the Arizona's like, we'll take a chance on him, and then now all of a sudden it's like, well, he's the legit number 2 starter.
He's a legit number 2.
Better, but it's like Kelly's not that far off. He's just a little bit worse across the board, but he's still a number 2 starter. So he would be the poster boy of a good reinvention for him. But why do I know all that about Merrill? Baseball's funny what you remember because there's so much to remember.
It really is.
Oi. All right. Last game. We still don't have the lineup for this. We'll have time for some questions. We can talk some top stacks here. But we've got the Cubbies at Texas. Jordan Wicks, no relation to John Wicks. He could use the help. I really like Texas. Who wouldn't? They were the world champions. I put that in my article today. How many people do you remember that it was Texas and Arizona in the World Series last year?
Only true baseball heads. It's easy to forget. I'll say that.
Yeah. And it's almost like forgetting the in-season tournament battle between the Lakers and the Pacers. It's funny what we choose to remember and we choose to forget, because those two things did not happen that long ago. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that happened. It's like, no, they were months ago, not a lifetime ago. But here I'm okay with John Gray, veteran pitcher, decent price point. Upside it for him is probably a quality start. If you look at the Cubs, they still have a fair number of strikeouts there. Obviously, this team cast off a lot of their talented players just because, hey, they won the World Series and got that monkey, taken care of. And here we are, back to the same old lovable losers here. But I guess I would lean towards John Gray, and then definitely the Rangers offense here. 5 or 6 of them made the All-Star game last year, so they have and plus they've got Wyatt Langford, who's their rookie superstar. So this is a pretty good lineup here. Do you have anything you want to call out from the Cubs?
Not from the Cubs. I'm not a huge John Gray fan. I think he's in play here. Not great pitching options. He's at a price point where it works. Don't love him though. I personally would rather use a guy like Tyler Wells, but don't hate it if you need the salary. The Rangers are always going to be in play. Today is no exception. They're 5th in the top stack tool. Their lineup is elite. Right there, you could say their lineup is better than Houston. I think the only lineup that you could say for sure is better than Texas is the Dodgers. But with Langford, as you mentioned, Evan Carter, to go along with Adolis, Simeon, Seager, Josh Jung, Jared Walsh had a monster game yesterday. Lineup's elite, and I have no problem with them on any slate. And this is not a spot where I'd be hesitant to use them at all. They're firmly in play as one of the top stacks on the board.
I'm mad. John Blake, executive vice president of promotions. He always tweets out what uniform Rangers are wearing and the roof status. He hasn't tweeted at all this year since it started. So the roof was closed the last 2 games, it looks like. So maybe it will be closed today. I would figure that this would be the perfect time to have it open there in Texas. But what do I know? It turns out that should not be a huge driving force. But the key thing to remember, even though Texas started their new stadium back in 2020, people still kind of forget, even in the summer, they're like, oh yeah, it's hot in Texas, we're going to get the home runs. It's like, no, they're going to have the roof closed, and that turned into a pitcher's park. But keep that in mind. But solid offenses across the board. All right, let's see what we have. We'll see if we get some questions coming in here. I do want to remind everybody that the promo code DINGER gets you 30% off any MLB package. That is going to go away very, very soon, and that will probably be the last baseball promotion we do for a while. So do not dilly-dally, get in on that one. And then, of course, we have the lineup generator. You can use the promo code DINGER to get in on that. Lineup generator is you get the lineup generators all bundled together because, of course, they are great for basketball, but you can get them as standalone packages as well. And those also gain you access to the stochastic, I'm just going to say Slack Discord channels here, but check those out. And then tonight we do have NBA Live Before Lock. That will be at 5 o'clock. Games are starting at 6. It's a 6-game slate. All the games are at 6 and 7 on this one. So there's the important news. No, I don't believe there's any weather issues today, are there?
I don't think so. I think we're good on that regard, which is always nice.
Let's see. No, other than those little bit of rain that is out there in Southern California. So that is not going to impact this slate. And then that's really it. So nice. Nothing to worry about there. Which city's going to get snow? That it always happens. It feels like, right? Maybe snow in the air, kind of thing. Usually it's Colorado. Sometimes it's Kansas City. Kansas City, like the warmest game of the day. Some Cleveland. Yeah, I was gonna say your Cleveland city sometimes has oddities like that, but we shall see. We shall see. All right, let's get the chats open here. Brad Wright says he's still in denial over that series. I know it was a bizarre series. It was a bizarre series. I guess I have to root for Tampa Bay now that I'm not in Washington anymore. I rooted for Washington long enough because they and the Mariners were the only 2 teams to never have appeared in a World Series, and then the Nationals ended up winning the World Series in 2019. Tampa Bay has been to the World Series, but they're one of 5 teams that has not won it. Mariners, the only team that's never even appeared in the World Series. Always a place in my heart. Considering I was at the very first Mariners game in person.
I watched the Phillies beat the Tampa Bay Rays right here in South Philly. Shout out, Phils.
There you go. There you go. What I don't see any questions coming in. Let me get the old Discord up here. It's baseball is entirely different than the NBA when it comes to super chats and burning questions, etc. It's a more unique sport when it comes to that. You want to why don't we rank our top stacks here? I'm sure people would like to hear that. What are your top 3?
For me, I'm going to go with the Nationals, Yankees, and I'll still say the Reds just because they're not even projected to be that highly owned. So Nationals, Yankees, Reds.
I'm going to go with the Reds. Excuse me. I'm going to be picking on Eric Fede a little bit. I'm not a believer. I'm going to need to see it, and I'm going to go with the Rangers here. Let's see. Nice. It's pretty safe. Could you rank for Matt, for Madub T? Could you rank your top 5 favorite pitchers?
I can. My top 5 favorite pitchers are Gausman, Flaherty, Fetty, Sale, Tyler Wells.
All right. I'm going to go with Flaherty, Rogers, Wells, Gaussman, and Gray. I don't have Sale in there. I understand it. I get it. He will be in my lineups. I will be under the field. It's not like I'm baseball. You don't avoid people, but you know, because it just takes one to break through, right? We've seen that how many times. That's actually another good call out here for baseball. I may, even if I only had 10% Sale, I could end up with the right winning lineup combination around Sale, right? Even though it's not well represented in my player portfolio, it could still end up coming to fruition. And I think that's one of the wonky things that we need to remember about baseball is it's all of a sudden you luck into your one-off and you got, you know, one guy hits 2 doubles, 2 bases clearing doubles, and another guy has a pair of home runs. And those were your one-offs. Congrats. You're going to be racing up the leaderboard regardless of what else is in your lineup. Those are the differentiation things that I think that we miss about. What are some other, what are call outs that you have for baseball, since we have a whole bunch of people that are watching on Sunday that probably did not tune in on prior to this, since this is just day 4 of the season?
Call outs for the slate.
Just for any rules that we want to, guidelines that we'd like to remember for this, like, you know, don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially on Easter.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you handle the weather, things like that?
all that stuff is risk tolerance. So, you know, obviously, if you are someone with low risk tolerance, I would avoid all weather spots. Someone with a high risk tolerance the other way. I mean, for me personally, rules are made to be broken, right? So every DFS slate is its own entity as far as I'm concerned. So I play each as such. And one slate will call for something completely different than something else. I was talking to Tommy before this show, and generally, as a rule of practice in MLB, I play chalkier pitchers, not because they're chalky, but because they're the best projected pitchers on the slate. It's much easier to get different with bats. Pitching is very projectable, but that doesn't mean every slate I'm just going to use the most popular pitchers. Like today, I don't love Sale as much as the field does, so I have no problem getting away from Sale. I think it's, you know, the more you do it, the more you do anything in life, the more you understand the nuances of whatever thing you're doing. And that applies for DFS and certainly MLB DFS, which in my opinion is the best sport for DFS because there's so much game theory involved. That's why I love it.
Do you have anything you wish you would have known 3-4 years ago? What are some of the hard-won lessons that you try to remember and carry over each year?
I think number one is, and I try to tell myself this all the time, like the goal in making DFS lineups isn't to be the most different or to make, you know, to get the best value on spots where people aren't getting. It's to win. So at the end of the day, that's what matters. I get it, process over results, but that's a fickle game. So yeah, certainly I wish I knew a lot more 3 years ago. It would have helped my game a lot back then, but that's, I think, true with anything in life. If you ask anyone who's doing anything of value, they'll say the same thing. And I think that's just a natural part of life. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have any hints on game selection? I talk about it on the shows. You know, Greg likes to give me guff about it, but I like going to Yahoo because you play a lot of reduced rake contests. The contest price pools are nowhere near as large, but I like to control my risk, and I'd like to be a nit when it comes to these things. So I like to look at that. Do you have is there any game selection tips you'd like to give?
That's not something that I'd like to touch on that much just because that's a risk tolerance thing. So like, I don't want to tell someone how they should or shouldn't play without knowing their entire situation and their entire portfolio, because things are a lot different from person A to person B. So I think there are certainly smart rules you can apply. Like, you know, if in my opinion, it's better to enter one single entry lineup than enter one lineup into a mass multi-entry contest. But in that same vein, I understand that the mass multi-entry stuff has huge winnings, and the only chance for you to basically hit a lotto ticket for a huge score. So I won't tell anyone not to do that either. You just have to know going in what your risk tolerance is.
Yeah. And it's funny that for me, for years have just been better. I mean, baseball's my favorite sport, but I have been better with just embracing that risk and chaos. That lends it a little bit more to, as well, to hockey of all things. And hockey, I just entirely rely on our tools because we have a bunch of people watching where they're going to say, oh, once basketball's over, then I don't really do anything till football. We have some really good tools here that if you apply just certain strategies and theories that are out there, you don't have to be an expert in the sport to have success. And I think that's something that tends to get overlooked by people, especially when it comes to baseball. It's math. It's easier. You don't have to worry about late scratches. You usually get pretty good announcements for it. You get the lineups early. It's a much nicer pace. The chaos happens on the field and not before the games. Right? It happens in the results. I just like it so much better. So those are kind of mine. But I see Bobby B says baseball's variance is annoying. Yes, but if you can harness that, you can utilize that to your advantage. I think those are very, very crucial and important things that you can do. What made you of all the sports you played, does baseball serve itself best for you to be just entering a handful of lineups? I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything as its pluses and minuses. I love baseball just because there's so much differentiation and game theory involved. But each sport has its own advantages and disadvantages, I would say.
Lineups there. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, baseball it's a nice pace. It doesn't destroy you. I find it that because I think the other thing is because there's so many slates. I mean, there's 190 almost 200 days of full slates. Each day almost has 2 slates on all of it. So let's say even half of it. You're playing 250 sizable slates a year, like 4 or 5 games or more. It's a nice way to go about doing it. Unlike ML and NFL, where you only have a handful of slates. You don't necessarily have a lot of time to learn from your mistakes, to try new things, etc. I love baseball. I've missed it. All right, I'm gonna upload my lineups here. I guess I gotta download them before I can upload them. So we've got 6.5 minutes until lock. So it's 1:35. We'll kind of wrap things up here, depending on the size of the slates. When we get down, some of the slates will be on Sundays will be 6 or 7 games, depending on who's on the West Coast, who's on the East Coast, how they break things out. We'll usually go up until lock. Other times there'll be more that we're waiting for, be it weather, stuff like that. Today, most of everything's front loaded, and in a lot of cases, we did see a couple of late scratches, but for the most part, we already kind of know who is where in this. So I think we're going to go ahead and just kind of sign off a little early here, if that's okay with you, Matt.
That is okay with me. I was saying we're getting a little bit dry with material, so I think the crowd would like that as well.
Absolutely.
Although that said, they can leave anytime they want, so I guess they wouldn't like that.
Yeah, that's true. It's always funny. The guys, I can't stand watching it, and then you see him comment 25 minutes later. You're like,
right. Like you're still watching.
So, in any event, thank you to Prize Picks for being the presenting sponsor. $100 deposit match if you come in through our link, and 30 days of Odd Shopper. And then we're going to be back at 5 o'clock doing NBA live before lock. Much bigger slate than last night. So a lot to look at there. Only one NHL game and then a couple of college basketball games. NASCAR isn't until 7:15, I think, tonight. So they're doing a night race here. But with that, we're going to slide on out of here. You guys can follow Matt on Twitter at Fantasy Tips Matt. I am at Emac DFS. Thank you to producer Mike, and follow us on stochastic_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.